So when we're at home watching Flesh and Blood events being live streamed, it's easy to see the folks on the screen as we would in many cases professional athletes. Now, while many of them are indeed our game's equivalent, what's fun about our game is that normal people with jobs and families can also make their claim in the top cut. And today's guest is that person. In the recent Pro Tour London event, he took Aurora to a top 24 berth and proved that hard work and determination can put the dude next door across from the pros. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dice Commando and a super special Go Again, a Fabulous cast. I'm really excited about this one because today we are joined by Zach Phillips, who many of you don't know by that name. You know him as AB96. He's going to spend some time with us today talking all things Aurora, and then maybe even beyond, given the current LL situation. But more importantly, his recent experiences at Pro 2 London, where he landed in the top 24, and I believe it was 14th. Is that correct?
You are correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so welcome, sir. For those who don't know who you are, could you please bring us up to speed, kind of give us a quick history and, why you landed on Aurora? And it's a lot of things to unpack, but go for it.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. I mean, first, Andrew, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate being here. I'm very excited to, do this and kind of get to spend some time with you. I know that we've kind of known each other from afar for a distance now. So it's kind of nice to get to connect on a personal level. It's kind of funny. I've been getting messages where I'm called Zach, and that's not happened a lot over the last couple of years. A lot of people call me Aggro or Blaze or random things like that. AggroBlaze actually, funnily enough, comes from Magic. I played Magic before I played Flesh and Blood, and my wife, my now wife, then girlfriend Carly, was like kind of helping me come up with a stream name, and she just jammed AggroBlaze together, and AggroBlaze was taken, so we put my birth year 96 on the back of it. Everybody thinks it's like, a 69 joke, but it's not. It's just my birth year. So it's kind of how the name came about. Flesh and Blood has been awesome for me. Absolutely love Flesh and Blood. It's been amazing ever since I got into it. Kind of as my Magic, life kind of like dwindled down a little bit because people moved away and things just kind of slowed down. Flesh and Blood popped up out of the blue, and I've fallen in love with it ever since. I love the way they do the game. I love the organized play. I love everything about it. Streaming, it's been a blast. Flesh and Blood has the best community in the whole world. In my opinion. So I just love hanging out with everybody on a weekly basis and getting to know the community's been an absolute blast. But Aurora. So I actually picked Aurora because I was like, you know what? Lightning sucked the last time around. There's no way Lightning's going to be that bad. So we're going to play Lightning this time. And thankfully, I had a 50-50 shot at picking the good Lightning hero, and I did. So here we are.
Yeah, fair enough. Actually, I think you undersold yourself a bit with the streaming, right? You're on every day, right?
I don't go. I was like ish for the most part. Yeah. So I'm live Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and then I post videos on Wednesday and Friday. And then if we're in town, I'm at ProQuest or callings or something like that, I try to be live on the weekends. So it's a lot of content. It's a lot of fun though. So.
Well, all I know is that you are frequently at the top, whether it be live streaming or actually because live streams don't show at the top, which is a weird thing. But anyway, of my subscription feed, you're consistently. Numero uno or numero dos, as it may be. So nice. So you have an interesting statement there, right? You said that your girlfriend, your partner, was the one helping you get into streaming. There's not a lot of folks out there who would be like, yeah, my partner's super into me gaming.
I tell everybody I have a very unique story. None of this, like streaming, none of this would be a thing without my wife. Honestly, wholeheartedly, cannot say that enough. When I played Magic back in the day, it was just a hobby. And one day she was like, what if you just bought a computer and started streaming? Because, she said, you like to talk all the time. I really think she wanted me to stream so that she didn't have to listen to me talk all the time. But for whatever worked, bought a computer and started streaming. And, things have kind of been slow for a while when I started with Magic. But as I got into Flesh and Blood, there wasn't a lot of viewership. And so I feel like I was fortunate enough to get in kind of on the, ground floor of the game with there not being that many creators. And, she really pushed me to continue to do it. She would be like, consistency is important. Like, like when I was tired or if I had a bad day at work, she'd be like, hanging out with, the people that watch your stream is going to make you feel better. Like, go and hang out and like do that. And like, I just, not many people have their partner push them into doing things not with them. And, she watches and she mods the streams and comments on videos.
Wow.
And like, she's just, and it's kind of funny because all the people in my Discord and like, all the friends that I've made through Flesh and Blood love Carly. Carly's my wife, by the way. They all love her. Like, she comes to all the big group dinners we do at big events. She was in London. Everybody's like, oh, is Carly going to be at this? And is Carly going to be at that? Like, everybody loves her. And so she's just as big a part of the community as I feel like I am, to be honest.
Oh, fair enough. I was going to ask, is it just because she wants to get you out of the room to watch Grey's Anatomy or whatever the kids are watching these days? But sounds like that might only be 50-50.
I think it started that way, and it's since turned into something else.
Fair enough, my friend. All right. Well, you kind of already answered my question of like, why Aurora? You just sounds like you stumbled into it. But I would say, for me personally, as someone who's very into Aurora, I enjoy her. You were, the face of Aurora to me in the community, to me personally, wow. Right? That's why I wanted to. That's
awesome. I appreciate that, man.
Well, I mean, lots of people playing Aurora, to be clear, right? But when I wanted Aurora tech or I wanted to check something, I was coming to you. So, but you kind of already answered the why there. So let me flip the original question I proposed to you just a little bit. Why do you think she landed with you? And why do you think that because you've played a lot of heroes, continue to play a lot of heroes. You do so on your streams. There's proof of that.
Sure.
So why has Aurora landed with you as your method of success?
So when I started playing Flesh and Blood, I came from playing, like I told you, I came from playing Magic, and all I ever did was playing Magic. I played the best aggro deck, no matter if it was terrible or good. That's all I did. And so when I got into Flesh and Blood, I made a statement to say, you're going to play whatever the best deck is, even if it takes, like if it's all 55 minutes and it's grindy. And so I played Oldhim a lot when I first started, because that was like my big transition with Flesh and Blood into like having a like slow down a little bit, take the game a little bit like, slower there. And then Fi came out, and Fi was this massive, like, run you over, just come at you 100 miles an hour deck. And I fell in love with Fi. And when they printed Aurora, I was like, okay, well, the thing that I hate the most about Briar back in the day was the fact that you could draw hands that were just no attacks. And don't get me wrong, it happens with Aurora, like I would say like 1% of the time, maybe. But, like the idea of using cards like Arc Lightning and Flicker Wisp and like Channel Lightning Valley and still playing all these great 0-for-4s was just exactly like what I wanted an aggro deck to be. And I've said this a couple times to people, but Aurora is what an aggro deck should look like, in my opinion. The versatility, like to be able to split and do different things, I think is a really, really powerful tool. But it can also be like your worst enemy at certain times, like if somebody plays a Warmonger's Diplomacy in a bad situation, or if you have no go again, it can be awkward and clunky at times. But Aurora really landed with me because she just kind of spoke to everything I loved about the game. And just kind of fit into that box for me.
Okay, awesome. So you took her to PT London and did very well. So do you have any, we saw you on stream, I think it was twice, is that right? In PT London?
No, it was just once. It was round 15.
I might be getting confused with there was another smaller event. I was trying to remember coming in here which one it was, but it was something in like the Midwest US.
Battle Hardened Memphis. I was on camera for a winning as well. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Or was it call? Because that was a double calling weekend. Yeah.
It was a double calling, but the way the calling finished on Saturday, they ended up streaming the Battle Harden instead of day 2 of the calling. So it was kind of interesting how it all panned out there. Got it.
Yeah. Anyway, so you were on that as well. But do you have any cool stories from, let's say, card-based stories from London? Because I'm sure there were shenanigans.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. We did a lot of fun stuff in London, but I think one of the biggest experiences for me, like as a person and, as someone who loves to get better at the game, because, there's a lot of people who say if you're not losing, you're not learning something. And, I'm inclined to agree with that a lot. But going into like round 15, my camera match, I played against Prism, and I had Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath as sideboard tech. I had Balance of Justice. I felt like I was super prepared for the matchup, and all I had to do was get like lucky and draw well. And then I was like, okay, like I'm one game away from top 8 of my first Pro Tour. Like, how cool would that be? and my opponent was playing Arclight Sentinel against me. And in all my testing games against Prism, nobody had ever played Arclight Sentinel against me because it didn't block. And so I felt like I learned this really, really valuable lesson that, you know, even though I had played hundreds of games, drafted 20 to 30 times leading up to the Pro Tour, you just get different experiences from different players, and there's always different people thinking of different things. And so it's like you are never always prepared for what's going to happen, and you have to just be willing to kind of roll with whatever happens. You know, and it was unfortunate to lose that game, but I feel like I learned a big lesson there that there's a lot of people that play Flesh and Blood in this, you know, great big world of ours, and that it's somebody's always got a better plan than what you think they do, and you just always got to be ready.
Yeah. I think you just made a good statement there about this great big world of ours, right? I mean, you know, something that I've learned in my many unfortunate years on this earth, and by unfortunate, I mean, like, I'm old is what I meant by that. Not that my years have been unfortunate. But, you know, diversity matters, and it's also diversity of thought and upbringing. So to that point, when you say the big wide world, right, folks from Spain, relevant, and other areas may approach the game differently. So as you've been able to travel and interact with folks at the competitive level from different areas, have you noticed differences in approach from like geography? Like the, you know, the French players play this way, the Spanish players play this way. Have you noticed anything like that?
I have definitely noticed that, like, depending on where you live and maybe like who you play against, you know, like you build decks in a different way. Maybe not that you play Flesh and Blood fundamentally different, because I think that the, you know, like the basis of math is pretty, you know, standard across the game. But, you know, how you approach deck building is a big part of that. Because, you know, I got Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath as Pauper Tech into Prism, you know, like about a month before the PT from a buddy of mine who lives on the West Coast. Like somebody like that I like, you know, like talk to every now and again, but like lives in a completely different part of the world and tests differently. And so, and you see it at these other events when people are, you know, in different countries at Battle Hardens, like whether it's a size variation or maybe like it's a card, you know, availability thing, but you see differences in deck building. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Like, is that really cool tech? Or like, were you a little too lost in the sauce here when we were putting our deck together, kind of thing. So I definitely feel like that's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, you know, your Ninth Blade thing actually, I believe the first time, I don't know whether it was the first time you did it or not, but the first time I saw it on one of your videos was you were actually doing a Blitz deck tech, headed into Skirmish 10 or whatever the latest one was. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But so I watched your Aurora Blitz tech, and you were like Ninth Blade, and you got kind of ripped up by a couple of people. They're like, "What the hell is this card?" And like I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's a yellow. It's Herald of Triumph Immune." Because Prism's like very. I was very impressed with that call, and it is now in my deck. So.
Yeah, no, it was a very like off the cuff, like deep, like dark horse meta call at the time, because I was like, I'm never casting this card. And my buddy, when he told me about it, I was like, dude, you're crazy. We're never playing this card. It's like, what am I doing? Pitching multiple cards to grasp to like set up Rune Chance and like try to play this. I was like, we're not Viserai. But it ended up actually being insane because, you know, the floor of it, kind of like you mentioned the yellow, you know, we're pitching it to Aurora.
Right.
You know, like we're setting up and we're continuing to play. And it ended up being a lot better than I thought it would. And, you know, honestly, like even as ProQuest season has gone on, I still have them in my sideboard because Prism's everywhere and I still continue to run into it. So it's been a really good piece of tech for me over the last few weeks. Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah, you know, we can talk pieces of text later, and maybe I'll bring that one back up because I've got a proposal for you for your next Blitz deck, but we'll hit that in a bit. But while we're talking about live streaming, when you were on stream for our Pro Tour London, Brian had some really, really nice things to say about you in terms of what you have been doing in your growth and kind of how you embodied, you know, what to me I interpret, and when I view you as just being a normal dude who plays cards, right? Not some, you know, rich kid jetting around the globe or whatever it may be, right? You're just like the dude next door. And I really appreciate that. So because of that relatability, what are your thoughts and feedback to others maybe trying to do the same thing? And let me caveat that I don't mean with, you know, becoming a YouTube personality. I just mean in terms of trying to grow themselves within the game.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I feel like as weird as it sounds, like me being me is kind of like what makes my stream unique. And I feel that way about everybody, because there are a lot of content creators in Flesh and Blood now, not way more than when I started. And honestly, I love that because there are tons of people that like stream on Twitch or, they go live on YouTube once or twice a week, or maybe they post a video once or twice a week, and they've got a few hundred subs on YouTube. But like, I love their content because they're funny and they're genuine and they're themselves, And I think when you have the ability to get in front of the camera or, just play the game in general, even if it's just with your buddies and just be yourself, like you're opening up this like world of what I like to say, like happiness. Like it's not just this world of possibilities, this world of happiness. And, honestly, like that's really all it's been about for me is like just being able to be myself and express myself in this positive way. And, to kind of touch what you said, I took Brian's comments very positively. As someone who's followed Brian since, Magic days back in the day, to hear him say that, I'm not following the rest of the crowd and I'm like making my own decks and things like that was a very genuine compliment from him, was how I took that. And it really meant a lot to hear that, coming from him. So, even though like watching the game back stung a little bit to watch me lose again, it was nice to hear all the positive things. And, even when people reach out to me and, they're like, hey, what should I do about this and streaming and, anything else? And I'm like, this is super cliche and it probably sounds like lame advice to you. But I'm like, the number one thing I would tell you is just to be yourself, like get in front of the camera and just be yourself. Like that's the best piece of advice I could give anybody.
Yeah, fair enough. And you learn through mistakes, right? You learn through your losses. If you're not losing, you're learning. If you're not putting out bad streams, you're not putting out streams. So there you go, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big piece of it. And I think that's like another like random thing, like to kind of like branch off what you said, is that a lot of people are afraid to post like games where they lose. And that's something I struggled with at the beginning because I'm like, man, people aren't going to watch me if I'm losing. But I'm like, when I post videos where I lose, more people are commenting and being like, oh, if you had done this, like, you might have had him at the end. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I didn't catch that the first time around. Like, thanks for pointing that out. And even in my stream tonight, somebody asked me, they were like, does all the back seating bother you? And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, I encourage it. Like, please help me get better. Like, I can tell you without a doubt, I have had the success that I've had because people come in my chat and they're like, hey, that was wrong. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's take a look at it and figure out why that was wrong.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And it takes a little shield of armor to take the hits, but that's well
sometimes
well taken. No, and you know what? Obviously, your info is already below in the comments for the folks watching back. But what I will do right now over here, is I will link your video where you recapped you did your recap for Pro Tour London. You actually live streamed it, I think, where you were watching yourself lose, talking about it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool, actually. I really enjoyed that video. So
it was a lot of fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, it stung to watch that video again, but it was a lot of fun because I waited to watch it for the first time live on camera.
Oh, I didn't know that.
To talk about the mistakes and what I could have done better. And everybody was super supportive. And I got a ton of I got a lot of great messages of people being like, hey, keep your head up, you'll get them next time and things like that. And it was just, even after a loss like that, the positivity from the community is just such a nice feeling.
No, that's awesome. I didn't know that was your first one. I mean, to be fair, I caught the stream, no one catches it when you go live immediately, right? So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd like to ping you on the new meta. And what's fun about this, even though it's not coming, even though the folks watching right now are not seeing it the moment, we got this info that I have across the screen, which is week 2 data. Mm-hmm. We got this about 2 hours ago. And Aurora continues to dominate, which is, not super surprising, but I'm a little surprised that she was number 1 this week. But I wanted to throw that across your bow because she's positioned to so basically there's a lot of things to unpack on this because we've got the data and then we have what happens next week, which could potentially put Aurora out, and then what happens after that. So I'm going to toss it to you and let you drive with your thoughts.
Yeah, so looking at this, I was super surprised. Now, I will say, as someone who loves Aurora, I did win a ProQuest this past weekend on Aurora, so it was a little bit of a smaller meta. There were 0 Florians at my ProQuest, which was mind-blowing to me. But Aurora winning 47 of the 163 pro quests, I think there was very surprising. I thought Florian was going to dominate, if you want the truth. Like whether it was the OTK variation of the deck or whether it was just a good, value plan, like 12 to 15 D reacts and just trying to hit you with fellings and stuff like that. I honestly thought Florian was going to be the number one deck coming out of this week. And I had this small, very, very small glimmer of hope that Aurora would survive until U.S. Nationals so that I could play her for national season. But it does not look like that's going to be the case.
Look good.
I was like, Aurora won almost 33%, which, again, it's like you said, it's not surprising, but I'm very surprised by that, to be honest. Because winning 15 more than the next deck, I feel like really speaks to the dominance of how powerful Aurora is. But the funny thing is that if you look at this list, the thing that surprises me, I guess it surprises me more than anything, is that New is third on the list at 18. Because, New is over the last 3 to 4 weeks kind of struggled and kind of failed to find her place in the current metagame. And so now you're kind of saying, oh, well, Enigma and Xenergon, talent, again, New, with the talent, with the Mystic, the Chi, talent is just rising to the top. And so it's just interesting to see, will she dominate more next week? Or does Florian kind of shut her down moving into that? I don't know. It was really interesting. And, it's funny because if you cut out Aurora and Florian, we have a very diverse metagame that we're looking at here. But with Aurora LLing probably this coming weekend, I think Florian's going to dominate everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I already spilled my beans. I thought Florian was going to be number one this weekend.
Yeah.
Do you think, again, this was not in our prescript, so you can deny to answer if you so choose, but
hit me with it, I'm ready.
Do you think that there's a bit of a symptom of flesh and blood at the, the mid-range competitive level where we do have a copy list problem in this game, right? Where all TCGs have it to a certain extent, but
sure.
Do you think that that's the reason that people are just oh, well, all the others are out, I'll go do this because it's the best hero, and then just from sheer numbers at locals, it just overpowered? Because like you said, if there was no Florians at your ProQuest, that's mind-blowing.
I was very surprised that there was 0 Florians at my ProQuest. Now, we did drive about 2.5 hours to a store that had their first ProQuest, so it was a little bit smaller than I'm used to.
What size?
Still
15, 20?
There was 13 people at the ProQuest. But I was still man, 13 people, and there's nobody playing. There was actually an Olympia in our top 4 of the ProQuest. It was really cool.
Hatchets? Hatchets or Dessa?
It was Jubil Olympia. It was It was wildly awesome.
Yes, we can.
Everybody was pulling this for this guy. It was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think PT London is a great reference, and I know that higher level versus local is a little bit of a different setting here. But at PT London there was 192 or 196 people playing Aurora, and it's I know that wasn't you've been playing this deck for 6 months. That was 2 weeks ago you were okay, I don't know what to play, so I'm going to play what everybody says is the best deck. And part of that I think kind of trickles down into ProQuest season because people were I went to PT London, I haven't had a lot of time to test between now and then. I'm just going to play Aurora because it's what I've been playing. So Aurora's probably winning the most ProQuests just because of sheer numbers of people that are playing Aurora. I do think that is a big contributing factor to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our argument may not be exactly the same, but I think it functionally is the same in terms of the output, right? And yeah, I am a little surprised on New myself, if I'm being honest, because I thought a lot of, if you look at card pools and what saves you money, going from Zen or Enigma into New is a pretty cheap move, right?
Sure.
But maybe money's not a factor for a lot of these people. I don't know. Maybe that's the truth.
So I feel like this could be an entire episode of your podcast, honestly by itself. But the prices of Flesh and Blood are one of the biggest skeptics that I hear from people. They're how do I get into it? As someone who wants to try the game and then fall in love with it before I spend $2,000. And I'm you know what? That's a valid question. And so I think that, a lot of people who are trying to win ProQuest, trying to go to Singapore, try to go went to London, things like that. I think at that point, you're probably already saving to buy cards and cases and travel to events pretty upfront if you have the ability to. There are a few people I know who have just been playing Aurora since the beginning because they were like, I'm going to play Aurora, and that's just what happened, and it just happened to be the best deck. But I do think that cost does affect a lot of I think cost affects a lot of local meta, not high level meta.
Right. Actually, I mean, that's a good point on Florian, right? Actually, maybe that is the answer on Florian, because Felling is like a $70 card right now, right?
It's crazy. It's ridiculous.
So, it's like, I'll just, casually pick up 3 Fellings and 3 Shelters and CNC, not a problem, right? Anyway. Like you said, it's a different cast.
I know a few people who didn't play Florian, or they haven't played Jarl and random other heroes that play Earth because they're like, I can't afford to buy Plowlanders and Felling of the Crown. Right now, they're just too expensive. And so I do think that is especially part of it. Because I think if Florian was cheaper, I think that number would be higher than 32, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's very, very, very fair. All right. Well, let me, like I said, I want to shift the script a little bit. Sure. Under the assumption that Aurora will LL next week, we're going to talk both CC and Blitz together. Right? Because we already referenced your Blitz video, because Aurora will continue to live in Blitz for at least a couple seasons because their points balancing is completely wrong in Blitz.
Yeah.
So keep in mind the questions I ask you are for both. Now, Gone in a Flash, when the Armory deck came out, I myself moved off Gone in a Flash. I never really liked the card in Aurora to begin with, but it worked. It was a 3-block at the worst, right? It was okay. Where do you stand on Gone in a Flash, both for CC and Blitz? What are your thoughts on that card?
So Gone in a Flash is high ceiling and a medium floor, which I think in an aggro deck makes it okay, because you're the floor being a 3-block is fine to me. That's where you want to be. But the ceiling of having an embodiment and going Gone in a Flash, discharge Gone in a Flash, 2-card 11 is absolutely insane. And those are the kind of numbers we're striving for. But, I was on Gone in a Flash at PT London, but for ProQuest season, I have since come off of Gone in a Flash and moved towards the Serenade and Skizik package. So overall, I think into an open meta, I think that Gone in a Flash is not where you want to be. I think that there is too many things that can happen. You have a higher chance of bricking with your aggro deck when you're playing a card like Gone in a Flash, and so that leaves us open to some awkward situations in this open meta against a lot more of the heroes. But at PT London specifically with this targeted meta game, I was very interested in 3-blocks, and so that's why I was on it. But also in Blitz, I have been on it in Blitz because I think that the ceiling of the card and this 3 to 4 to 5 turn game format is very powerful. And if you're able to set up a really good Gone in a Flash turn with discharge or anything like that, then I think you're able to really push the tempo in a really positive way. My biggest gripe with Gone in a Flash is that it doesn't fit into the Channel Lightning Valley turn very efficiently. And I hate that about it. That's my biggest complaint with the card. It just, I don't know, it feels so awkward, so clunky on those turns. So probably for that reason, if you made me pick Gone in a Flash or no, I'd probably have to say no right now. Okay.
Well, yeah, and then, I mean, you nailed it on the head, right? So with the, Skizik and the Yellow Skyward Serenade, sorry.
Yeah.
We're talking about Aurora. I should probably, know the names of the cards when I go in. But
listen, I do research. Skizik goes with the other one. I got it, man.
Right. The Skizik package. What are your thoughts? So my current build, which is not winning Pro Tours, to be clear, but my current build, I actually run X-1 Skizik or Skywards to Skiziks, because a lot of the times I found myself in this situation where you have to block with a Skizik and then things get weird and then you're inefficient. So what's your take on that package, both for CC and Blitz? Is my X-1 right, or what's your thought?
So I think in CC, the X-1 has a lot of validity to it, because I know a lot of people, and myself included, where I draw Skizik and I'm like, man, Like, am I going to block inefficiently so that I can pitch this card to keep it in my deck for later? Or am I just going to block 3 and then use my Serenade as embodiment and +1? Which, to be fair, can situationally be okay. But I mean, yeah, I think that the NCC, the 2 Serenades and 3 Skizzics is actually a very, very valid plan. In Blitz, I'm on 2 of both just because the format is so fast that I want to see as many of the power cards as I can as quickly as I can. And if I have to block with Skizzic in Blitz, I'll block with it, unfortunately. But in Blitz, we're just hoping to like draw the turn on turn 2 and just try to put our opponent on the back foot.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you gotta go when you gotta go, right? So
yeah.
Right, so topic number 5, and I will read it out for the kids. It's clear Aurora is doing well, and yet there's another set on the way. But right now it's looking like she'll at a minimum be around for Nat's season at least. Womp womp.
I was so excited for you to talk about this question because I was reading back over it before we did this, and I was like, man, this did not age well.
So that said, assuming she does go, what's next for AggroBlaze 96?
Man, this is a tough question to ask because when I started playing Flesh and Blood, the original deck that I played was OG Dash. Like I played Dash Inventor Extraordinaire when I got into the game. I love that everything blocked 3 consistently. Like I just love the consistency and like you had go again on basically everything in the deck. Like I really enjoyed that aspect of what we were doing then. So I am really hoping that Puffin is going to be awesome.
Okay.
That is like my biggest takeaway, that I want Puffin to be cool. There's a few people in the community that I'm already like, we're speculating and like, we're going to work on the deck a little bit here and there and stuff like that. Sadly, when Aurora LLs, if it is before Nationals, which does seem likely, like you said, I probably won't be on Puffin for Nationals because I am a firm believer that I am someone as a player who cannot just be handed a deck and win with it. Like I am someone who needs the time. I need the reps. I need to learn the hero and the intricacies. So I'm probably going to play a hero like Florian if Florian's still doing really well. And, go into it saying, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to be playing and I have an idea of what the new heroes look like. And we're going to put together some sideboard plans and strategies going into Nationals and stuff like that. But Puffin is my hope, but Florian is probably going to be the realistic choice.
Yeah, I mean, assuming you've got the stuff for Flow, why not play him? He seems very super flexible, and it turns out Runeblades are really good. Shocker. So.
Turns out James White likes Runeblades.
Yeah, fair enough. So interestingly, you mentioned that you're not the type of person who can just pick up a deck and play it. So, and I think that resonates with me as well. So how do you value, because you've played different games, right? You spoke to Magic, now you're in Flesh and Blood. How do you value speaking to the person as a playstyle, right? You said you used to play aggro decks in Magic. Aurora is very clearly an aggro deck. She's got intricacies, but she's very clearly an aggro deck. How important is it to speak to playstyle versus being able to execute? And then the flip, because that seems like an easy question on the surface. So the flip there is, how do you get out of that rut and pivot in, like, let's say we go into a Guardian meta in the summer, like could happen. What do? And you mentioned you picked up Oldhim, so go for it.
This is like, I agree. This looks like an easy question, but there's a lot of detail. And if I talk for too long, just stop me because I might ramble on this one. But when we talk about like how to approach meta games and playing a new deck, I am a firm believer that at a certain point, you have to mentally draw a line in the sand and say, I'm going to do this. Now we have a local. I'm not going to call anybody out here, but we have a local who tells me tells me all the time that they want to play Guardian because they want to learn how to block. They want to learn how to play the slower game because all they've played is aggro decks since they got into the game. That's all they've ever played. And then every time I hand him one, he plays 2 games and he stops. And listen, if you watch this, just know I love you, brother, because we're really good friends. But at the same time, he knows he has a problem. And so, I really forced myself to play Oldhim, which was the boring, lame Crown of Siege, pitch to Oldhim like every single turn deck. But it taught me so much about how to pivot play styles. And tonight, I actually ended up streaming Jarl earlier tonight before, we were doing this. And I'm having to shake the rust off because there's a lot there, and like different variations of Jarl play very differently. So if you are someone who, like me, and to be honest, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but I think most people are, there are very, very few Michael Hamiltons in the world, is what I would say, who just like pick up and they're just able to play decks at a very, very high level. But I think most people need to force themselves to figure things out. And a lot of people don't do that for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's like budget. Sometimes it's time. Like not everybody has the time to sit and, play. I probably play about 100 games of Flesh and Blood a week on average. And, most people don't have that kind of time. I'm very fortunate that my life has put me in a place where I can do things like that and really practice and do the things that I love. But it is really about mental willpower, in my opinion. And I'm also a firm believer, to kind of talk about this, that if you enjoy something, you will play better with it. Mm-hmm. If you don't enjoy it, I think at the end of the day, it can be the best deck in the room and it doesn't matter. If you're not having a good time, at some point mentally, you fall off track. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you at times. It happens to all of us as players. And so a big part of it is really enjoying the game plan. And oddly enough, this is going to get a very negative reaction from your crowd, I'm sure. But I fell in love with playing Oldhim. I tell people there is a high in seeing the look on your opponent's face when they know there's no more damage, when they know they can't cross the finish line. That is like a feeling that I chase, to be able to play the game that way. Now, Aurora definitely doesn't provide that in any way, but it is something that I hope one day I can, find again in these slower, more, like just grindier decks. But it's really, unless you're just naturally gifted and you pick things up well, I think it's all about mental fortitude and forcing yourself to play through the bad things you don't like, even if it's not at a competitive level, because knowing how to play a different deck will teach you how to beat it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. 100% on that one. Do you think, kind of to your point, though, you said, folks, I don't remember exactly your words, but I'm paraphrasing. Mm-hmm. You had said functionally like, you'll become more robust over time. Do you think, though, that if something like, to your buddy's point, like, I'm going to learn Guardian, this sucks, I hate it, right? We all know that Flesh and Blood, you have to lose to learn, right? We've already mentioned that, right? So if you're not enjoying playing the archetype, doesn't that actually make it harder to lose to learn?
It does in a lot of ways, and for sure. And that's where I think that big portion of like, I'm going to force myself to learn how to do this really comes into play. Mm-hmm. So another, like Victor, I'm a big fan of Victor. Like, I've played a lot. I've streamed a lot of Victor. I've really championed the hero a lot. I feel like, since he came out for about 6 months there. And he has a lot of very interesting play patterns, in my opinion, especially with Visit Goldbane Estate, where the clashing is a high variance sort of it. And it can be very frustrating because you lose clashes and it's just like, man, this sucks. Like, this just feels bad. But I feel like, like that was the best Guardian we had for a long time. And you had to learn to play through that variance. And, a big part of like playing during that meta was me having to say, okay, like this sucks and I got unlucky, but I'm going to like take a breath, pull it together mentally and keep playing to push through it. And I think if you take that mentality and you transition it to learning a hero or a class that you don't like, I think that your success rate will go up over the next year of playing Flesh and Blood quite significantly.
Strong statements, especially when we saw a recent pro tour of top decking Command and Conquer for poppers, right? Like,
oh my gosh.
Right? Luck happens.
I was sitting in the hall when that happened, and let me tell you, everybody lost it. It was an awesome moment to see. It was really cool.
Awesome. All right, well, my friend, we've been here for 40-ish minutes at this point, so I want to make sure I turn it over to you and give you an opportunity to either ask questions, give shout-outs, whatever you want to do for the rest of the time.
Well, I mean, Andrew, thanks for having me, man. I've had a lot of fun, and this has been I feel like I've done more of the talking than I wanted to, so I apologize if I like just ran over you. This was not my goal, so I apologize if that happened.
A good interviewer will let their person talk. There you go.
Well, fair enough. You did a great job then. I will say that. I think I've really fulfilled what my wife says, that I just like to talk. So we've really leaned into it there.
That's why she told you to get out while she's watching Grey's Anatomy or King of Thrones or whatever. Game of Thrones, whatever. So.
Exactly. But, I mean, honestly, just kind of going back to this, the biggest shout out has to go to my wife. Like I can't help but feel just appreciative that, her pushing me has put me here in this situation to talk to you and, to this moment. So it's really cool. And, thanks a bunch for having me here, and everybody who watches and supports me. And, it means a lot, guys. It's not just me, running my mouth. It really means the world to me that you guys all want to come out and hang out and watch and play and talk to me and all kinds of nonsense, even when I'm playing terribly. It's a blast and I love it. So thank all of you guys. I really appreciate it.
You're not done yet. I know I'm talking, but you're not done yet with your allotment.
Hey,
like you're allowed 3 minutes, my friend. I don't know what I'm saying, but I run on piggyback on that. I really enjoy. I don't do a great job with commenting, because most of my stuff's listens, like driving to work and stuff like that. But I really listen to a lot of your stuff. It always gets a like, not a lot of comments. Your live streams I don't catch as much because they don't archive the same, but your stuff that pops to the top, I generally watch that.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy your stuff. So folks watching, you should go check them out. And again, there's a reason we're chatting, and it's not just because of the Pro Tour victory, although that was a good catalyst to where we're at. So
thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words. It really means a lot.
Cool. Well, all right. Shout outs. I mean, other than, the most important one, which is the amazing wife, but you know what? We didn't do this on the intro. Where do folks go find you?
Okay, so yeah, the best way to find me is on YouTube. I feel like that is the fastest way to find me. I mean, like, I know that it's like I am AggroBlaze 96 everywhere. I have tried to make it as like synonymous as I can so that you can find me every single place. It's super easy to look me up, stuff like that.
OnlyFans, AggroBlaze 96 at OnlyFans.
I'm telling you, there have been so many jokes when I'm live. Like when so every now and again I have like a drinking stream, and we do that like a couple times a year where it's just me drinking and just yelling, and it's just nonsense. And I play terribly the whole time, but it's a lot of fun. And people are always like, oh, this is as close as we get to like AggroBlaze OnlyFans. Like AggroBlaze After Dark is what everybody calls it. And so we always have a really good time. It's a lot of fun. You know what? Actually, there is one person I want to shout out, and this is going to sound like I'm shamelessly plugging a sponsor, but I'm not. I don't know if you've heard of this, but the Codex Journal, I'm trying to get it in.
I saw that on the Twitters today. You were like, "Oh, I'm going to give away Codex Journal." I was like, why are you giving away Codex? That's like $100 card. What?
So the Codex Journal is a great way to track your games and keep up with all your stats, and it's really helped me through RTNs and ProQuests, and even at the PT to be able to take notes and record my games and things like that. And the guy who created it, his name's Thomas. It's a phenomenal product. He is super great to work with. I love him. He's awesome. We become, I feel like friends, just like outside of the whole, sponsor, thing, like whatever. But it's been a lot of fun to get to know him and talk to him. And so he's been really awesome. And just big shout out to Thomas and his awesome product, who is very quickly reaching the community in a lot of places. So it's super awesome to see.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. Thank you for throwing that in as well. And Thomas, best of luck on your growing journey. So last question I got to ask you, buddy, before we get out of here. You just pulled down a ProQuest. What happened to that gold foil? What was it?
Okay, so this is, and again, if we're out of time, just shut me up. But so the first time I ever won a gold foil, we opened it because, it was my first gold foil, and it was a Coat of Frost, and it felt so bad. It felt so bad. It's so cheap though. Well, I'll keep it forever. Like I have it in our safe. I'll keep it till the end of time.
It's commoner playable, man. Like it's actually legitimately good in commoner.
Okay, cool. I will keep that in mind. That's actually funny. I was talking to someone about Commoner the other day. But, we opened the next couple, and, it was good to make videos out of them and post them and stuff like that. But after I opened them, they're, very hard to sell. And so, because I'm not interested in keeping a lot of them, keeping my first one just because it's my first one. But, after that, I sell them all sealed. I actually, it's kind of funny, you know, Carly one day was like, hey, like if you win today, we're going to sell it sealed. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, like we're just going to sell it sealed. And I was like, okay, sure. Like no problem. And it was actually the first ProQuest I ever won. I had never won a ProQuest before that. And I was like, man, I was like, you know, I don't know what you believe in, man, but I was like, this is fate, cosmic power, whatever you want to call it, kind of pushing me here. And so ever since then, I sell them all sealed because, you know, it helps us travel and fun trips and stuff like that.
Sure. No, makes sense to me. Could have been a Coat of Frost. Could be a boat.
Listen,
you never know.
I know it's a super lame answer, but it's the truth.
No, that's completely fair. All right, buddy. Well, any other final shots before we get out of here today?
No, I don't think so, man. Again, thanks for having me, buddy. Happy to do this.
Thanks for staying up late to make this happen after my kiddo went to bed. And you know how it is, right? We got to close out. You got to say it with me, my friend.
Oh, dude, let's do it.
Oh, the three.
Go Commando. Oh,
Go Commando.
Okay.
Oh,
right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right. 3, 2. Wait, I'm not going to do countdown. Ready? Go Commando.
Go Commando.
Yeah.
Close enough. I can't wait to watch this back later and see how bad I was at that.